At 82 years old, Bob Dylan remains one of music's most uncompromising voices, a living legend who has spent 6 decades defying expectations and challenging the status quo. In a recent blistering interview, the Nobel Prize-winning songwriter unleashed a scathing critique of today's music industry, calling out what he sees as its rampant commercialism, artistic bankruptcy, and loss of authenticity. Dylan's words carry extraordinary weight coming from an artist who has consistently followed his own creative compass, from his early folk protest songs to his electric reinvention and beyond. His critique strikes at the heart of contemporary music's greatest contradictions, an industry that prioritizes viral trends over lasting artistry, algorithms over inspiration, and profit margins over creative risk-taking. Dylan's frustration echoes a growing sentiment among musicians and fans alike who feel disillusioned by today's hyper-commercialized music landscape. In an era where songs are engineered for TikTok virality rather than emotional resonance, where streaming numbers trump artistic merit, and where artificial intelligence threatens to replace human creativity altogether, Dylan's voice emerges as a vital counterpoint. This isn't just nostalgia from an aging rock icon, it's a profound meditation on what happens when art becomes purely transactional. As we examine Dylan's explosive comments and their implications, we'll explore how his lifelong rebellion against industry conventions makes him uniquely qualified to diagnose today's musical malaise. When Dylan describes today's music business as a goddamn circus, he's pinpointing its fundamental transformation from an artist-driven culture to a content-driven machine. The industry he first entered in the early 1960s operated on completely different principles. Record labels took chances on idiosyncratic voices, RHR. Dio programmers had autonomy in their playlists, and audiences expected albums to reveal themselves over time rather than deliver instant gratification. Today, Dylan laments, the system has become ruthlessly efficient at identifying and exploiting market trends while squeezing out anything that doesn't fit predetermined commercial templates. The rise of streaming platforms has accelerated this shift, creating an environment where music is increasingly treated as disposable content rather than meaningful art. Dylan reserves particular scorn for the algorithmic systems that now dictate what music gets heard, noting how they privilege familiarity over originality and reinforce existing listening habits rather than challenging them. "You think some computer knows what makes your hair stand up?" he asks incredulously. His critique extends to the artists themselves, many of whom he sees as complicit in this system, more concerned with building personal brands than developing distinctive musical voices. In Dylan's view, the modern music industry hasn't just changed, it has fundamentally lost its way, prioritizing short-term gains over lasting cultural contributions. What makes Dylan's critique so powerful is that it comes from someone who has spent his entire career resisting commercial pressures and industry expectations. From the moment he arrived in New York's Greenwich Village folk scene as a young troubadour, Dylan demonstrated an uncanny ability to confound expectations and reinvent himself on his own terms. His infamous electric performance at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, where he was booed by folk purists for plugging in his guitar, stands as one of music history's most dramatic examples of artistic independence. Dylan understood then what he maintains now, that true artistry requires the courage to alienate some listeners in service of creative evolutio. Nay, throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Dylan continued to baffle critics and fans alike with unexpected left turns, recording a country album, embracing Christianity, then later exploring traditional folk and blues. Each phase was met with skepticism, yet in retrospect revealed an artist following his muse without regard for commercial consequences. This stands in stark contrast to today's music landscape, where artists are often pressured to maintain a consistent brand identity across albums and tours. Dylan's career demonstrates that artistic growth often requires discomfort, both for the creator and the audience, a notion that seems increasingly foreign in today's risk-averse industry. His willingness to court failure makes his critique of contemporary music's safety-first approach particularly damning. At the core of Dylan's critique is a profound concern about the loss of authenticity in modern music. He reserves special disdain for the proliferation of digital tools that allow artists to correct or enhance their performances, arguing that perfection has replaced personality in contemporary recordings. "You've got singers who couldn't carry a tune in a bucket," he observes, "but slap enough effects on it, and suddenly it's art." For Dylan, whose early recordings captured raw, unfiltered performances full of imperfections that gave them character, this technological mediation represents a fundamental break from music's emotional core. Dylan also laments how the industry's focus on immediate marketability has eroded the apprenticeship system that once nurtured artists. Where he and his contemporaries developed their craft through years of playing small clubs and studying musical traditions, today's stars often emerge fully formed from talent shows or social media platforms. The result, in Dylan's view, is music that lacks depth and staying power, hits designed. The contrast with Dylan's own career couldn't be starker. Now in his 7th decade as a recording artist, he has survived numerous career dips and reinventions precisely because his work was never tied to fleeting trends. His critique suggests that today's industry, with its emphasis on instant metrics and short-term returns, makes it increasingly difficult for artists to develop the kind of longevity he has achieved. When success is measured in monthly listeners rather than cultural impact, the incentives tilt toward novelty rather than depth, a system that Dylan clearly views as fundamentally hostile to meaningful artistic expression. Bob Dylan's broadside against the modern music industry shouldn't be dismissed as mere curmudgeonly nostalgia. Coming from an artist who has spent his life pushing against boundaries and reinventing popular music, his words demand serious consideration. At their core, his criticisms raise fundamental questions about what we value in music, whether we prioritize convenience over connection, familiarity over discovery, and commerce over art. While the industry Dylan describes may be gone forever, his critique serves as an important reminder of what's at stake in how we create, distribute, and consume music today. In an age of algorithmic playlists and manufactured stars, Dylan's voice remains a vital counterweight, proof that music can still challenge, provoke, and endure when it comes from a place of authentic creative vision. His message isn't just about lamenting what's been lost, but about fighting to preserve what makes music matter in the first place. As long as artists continue to heed that call, there may yet be hope for music's soul,